So for all my fellow Godzilla and Kaiju fans out there, today is a glorious day. If you guys didn't know, for the past 30 some days on Twitter, on the official Godzilla Twitter, they have been counting down all of the Godzilla movies that Toho has put out. Now, of course, these are specifically the Toho Japanese-produced Godzilla movies. This has nothing to do with the MonsterVerse or the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong sequel. That is the American-made Godzilla movies, which are still being made, thank God. There was a little bit of a question on whether or not Kong was going to get a sequel. Thankfully, we are getting one with a giant orangutan motherfucker. I don't know. That's not important right now. What's important is the Toho Godzilla movies. So on their Twitter, they have been steadily counting down every single Godzilla movie that they put out. And we noticed early on, or at least I did, and other people in the Twitter, Godzilla Kaiju community. Is that a thing? I don't know. I follow a bunch. We noticed that there was one extra movie than the amount of films that they had actually made. And they started their countdown with the most recent film, which is Shin Godzilla, which came out in 2016. And then steadily, every single day, they've been adding another movie poster to the block as it counts down to the original. And can I just say, look how much more awesome the old school movie posters were. Can we go back to this, man? I miss when it was just so in your face with giant monsters fighting in the background with the artistic drawings and the actors' faces up close. I miss that shit, man. Anyways, we were counting down, and then eventually yesterday we got to original Godzilla 1954, the original first movie, with that one extra slot. And most people were assuming that the extra slot was going to be the upcoming movie poster of the new film that they're creating, or maybe a trailer drop, and basically we got both. So first we got this, which is the official poster and title of the movie. Now this is the Japanese poster. In the translated English poster, it says Godzilla -1. All right, so that is the official title of the movie. For the translation, it's Godzilla -1. We have the little G logo that they've released before, but now with an actual image of Godzilla inside of it, which is pretty cool. Now, a lot of people were pointing out that this is an image of Godzilla from some ride in Japan. I'm really not sure. I'm not really aware of it, but if that's the design choice that they're going with, I actually think that this looks pretty dope. I really like the kind of jagged, kind of horrific looking spikes that are on his back. I like that it looks like a good amalgamation of the Heisei era Godzilla mixed in with a little bit of the Millennium Godzilla. Look, I love the Showa era, but it's kind of hard to recapture that, especially if you're going to do CGI or something. May as well just let that live iconically in the past. I love it. Showa is my favorite era of Godzilla, but it had its time. It had its moment. Let's just keep it and cherish it there, and we'll continue to expand the design of Godzilla as we go. So this is a pretty sweet poster. Also says the release date is November 3rd, but the really cool thing is that it is releasing worldwide on December 1st. So you are actually going to be able to see this movie, probably only in specific locations. I'm not sure of the details of it. It might be a Fathom Events thing. I'm not really sure, but there is going to be the possibility that you're actually going to be able to see this in American theaters on December 1st. As far as the rest of the world, I'm pretty sure December 1st is a worldwide thing. There might be some discrepancies depending on which country. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of the general idea that they're pushing for. All right, and they also released this little teaser trailer. Now it's only 30 seconds long, but there is kind of a lot to talk about here. First of all, now, the title of the film, Godzilla -1, is an interesting one, but I think the trailer might give us a little bit of a clue as to what they actually mean by that, because it starts off by saying, post-war, Japan had lost everything. Now, the original creation of Godzilla was in a response to World War II and the bombing of Hiroshima, the atomic bomb. Also, I find it incredibly hilarious and ironic that Oppenheimer comes out this year, the same year as the reboot of Godzilla in Japan. So we literally have a movie about the creation of atomic weapons and then the result and fallout of what those atomic weapons did to a civilization and to create a creature like Godzilla. So dude, the universe has a strange way of working itself out and making everything kind of come together. I don't know what it is, man. But anyways, so it says Japan had lost everything post-war. Okay, so the next point that they're going to make, and then they show a little bit of the devastation. Written, directed by Takashi Yamazaki, which I'm not really familiar with his work, so I can't commentate on that. But look at what is going on here in this image, if it allows me to show you guys. So going by the devastation that's happening right here, this could obviously be the devastation from the bomb itself, from Hiroshima, or this could be devastation from Godzilla. But either way, I think that this is showing us that this movie is going to take place at some point during that era. So this is not going to be a modern day era Godzilla movie. It is literally taking us back, all the way back to, I think, the idea of the original film, not just in its concepts and its execution, but also within the timeline. So I think that was the purpose of having the timeline showing the countdown of all the Godzilla films, starting with the most recent, going all the way back to 1954. It wasn't just to tease and to build up to the new film and the new poster. It was also in reference to what the movie is trying to accomplish by going back to the original meaning, the original kind of intent of what Godzilla was meant to represent, of humanity pushing itself so far and nature striking back, and that futile attempt to control the ways of the world and the ways of the universe, and that we will always be subject to the whim of whatever the universe has to throw at us, right? So I think that it has a very important relevancy to go back through the countdown down to the very, very original, and even going before that. So when it says -1, now there's another thing in the trailer. It says from 0 to minus. So this could mean a couple of things. Again, I don't know. By the time of me like recording this video, editing it, and uploading it, they could totally release an entire synopsis or something like that. There could be more information about this before I even get a chance to upload this video. I haven't looked into it. All I've done is looked at the Twitter feed the past couple of days and now watched the trailer. So I don't know if this has already been released, but just from gathering the information that I see here, I think that this might actually mean like 0 is where the country was when the atomic bomb went off, and minus is going to a stage that's even worse than that. So how do you go worse than 0? You go minus, you go negative, and that might be what Godzilla is. So that's my running theory about what the construction here. Very, very quick cuts. Hard to tell, but you can tell just by the way the characters are dressed too. Like, this is not modern era. Like, this really looks like 50s, 60s era Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Godzilla -1. And then, of course, yeah. And there he is, the motherfucking Godzilla himself. We get a clear image of him just for like 2 seconds. And this looks great. Now, I don't know if this is supposed to be the same exact design that's on the poster, but this looks really good. This looks very Heisei, just judging by like the way that the top of the head looks and the scales and everything. This like sharp yellow teeth actually kind of remind me of Shin Godzilla, and then you see a little bit of like the gums to the side. I don't think we've ever seen that before. That might have been a Shin Godzilla thing too, but I can't quite remember. I don't think it was, but this looks awesome. So as far as like, Japanese movie CGI goes, this looks pretty great. Also, I mean, this is only a blurred like 2-second image, so it could look much better by the time the film is completed, but we actually do see a small image of Godzilla. It's only a 30-second teaser, but it gives us a lot to talk about. It gives us to talk about what the meaning of -1 actually is. It showcases sort of like what Japan is looking like at the time and what it's meant to kind of represent, going back to the beginning. And then, of course, we get the image of Godzilla himself. Very, very briefly. Look how giant that mouth is. Awesome, man. I can't wait to see it. This is so cool. And even better than that is just that knowing that we are getting another Toho Godzilla movie is super, super exciting, on top of the fact that the MonsterVerse is still continuing. So we are going to get this movie and the MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong sequel within the span of, less than a year together, because that movie comes out next year. If this one releases December 1st worldwide, I mean, in December, we're going to be able to see this movie, and then I forget when Godzilla vs. Kong comes out. I think it's only a few months later, so we're going to be able to see that also within that time span. So it's going to be the first time in history, really, that we're going to have 2 concurrent Godzilla franchises going. Now, Shin Godzilla came out, and that was pretty much its own thing. That was kind of meant to be like a standalone movie that doesn't really have any. It's actually the only Godzilla movie that doesn't have any connection to any others, even the original. It's just its own thing. So that is kind of its own entity, and I don't really see that as part of the franchise. But if this movie is going back to the beginning, literally, and we're actually going to get Godzilla you know, it might take place in 1954, or it might take place literally right after the bomb drops. And from there, they could time skip wherever they wanted to, if they wanted to. It's not like Godzilla really ages, you know, or if he does age, it's probably at a vastly slow rate, so they don't really need to explain too much. So what they could do is they could literally make this sort of like a remake of the original. They could have the Dr. Serizawa, they could have the Oxygen Destroyer, and then they could do the sequel either taking place still in the 50s, or they could bring it to modern day for the sequel. But that's getting like way too ahead of ourselves. I just think this is a great return to form for Godzilla. I'm really, really excited about it. If you think about it, we had Shin Godzilla, but before that, we didn't have a Godzilla movie for like, you know, over a decade. And it's been almost a decade since Shin Godzilla. So if this is really planning to be the first stage in like a franchise, or to bring Godzilla kind of really back into the limelight, that is something that I'm pretty excited about. I've always been a huge Godzilla fan, always been a huge kaiju fan. I grew up watching the films, obviously. As a kid, Godzilla was my hero. You can see Godzilla posters in the background I have. Like, I'm all about this, man. So this is something that brings me joy and makes me very excited. I don't know how my viewers are going to feel about it. I'm sure I have a lot of Godzilla fans out there, hopefully. And if you're new here, if you're new to this video, checking out this information, go ahead and subscribe, because I will be talking about updates of this movie as it comes out. And I also review a lot of anime, manga, and Japanese media in general. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and subscribe. But if not, that's okay too. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? What do you think about the emergence of Godzilla -1? What do you think it could all mean? What do you think the storyline is going to be like? And how do you feel about that little 30-second teaser? I mean, hey, a lot of good things can happen in 30 seconds. Am I right, ladies? Anyways, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you guys want to. Give it a like, give it a comment to help it out in the algorithm. If you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have a Patreon, channel memberships, merch store, all that shit linked down below. Other than that, guys, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.